Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Help for the Guildless. My name, of course, is Antoine, and I'm working on this once-a-week video thing so far. This is going to be 4 weeks in a row. I think I'm back. And, just for you out there, I decided to stick with this month going after some of my favourite targets by dealing with something of a more feminist nature. Not just feminine, but vegan as well. That's right. Combining two halves of a completely and utterly horrible shit sandwich and turning it into a diarrhea hoagie. So this actually is a very old article, and when I say old, I mean going on 6 years, but it just happened to come across my desk a couple of days ago. And believe it or not, just the title alone is enough to make you want to put your head through whatever solid surface you have going right now. But don't let me gild the lily. You're going to see it for yourself. This is from the Vegan Street blog. Stories and musings of Marla Rose, the vegan feminist agitator. Now, what she means by agitator is she's a shit stirrer, not so much unlike the shitlords and trolls and just idiotic morons on Twitter or Facebook or even in the YouTube comment section. But she uses agitator as, well, a badge of honor. It's not really a badge of honor, it just means that she's willing to scream in your face if you don't do what she likes. Now, I'm going to tell you, like I said, this is from 6 years ago. The title is a very long one, because we don't do anything half-assed here. No, we use our full ass. If she didn't want to get raped, she wouldn't have been made out of meat. The language of taking what is not ours. Did I not tell you how stupid this is? Was I wrong? Somehow, this article is going to equate meat eating with toxic masculinity and possibly rape. So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This one's going to be a rollercoaster ride of epic proportions of stupidity. She's trying to give weight to her blog by giving us a quote at the beginning that's supposed to basically surmise everything that this blog is about to say. So if I wanted to give you the TLDR version of this, here it is. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Audre Lorde. Take for that what you will. So let's jump into this, shall we? It's rather wordy, but yeah, I'll power through. There is a consistent mental gymnastics routine people will go through in order to justify the actions they take that don't quite sit well with them, but wish to continue to do anyway. While I don't believe that the habit of eating animals is usually done to intentionally inflict suffering and harm, in the language around both sexual violence and consuming animals, there is a crossover territory where what rapists take from those they victimize and what omnivores take from animals has a remarkably similar attitude of entitlement encompassing it. So there you have it, folks. There's your TLDR version of this entire blog. She thinks that rapists, and since I'm pretty sure she believes that women can't rape, men are to blame for everything. I mean, rapists take from those they victimize, and what omnivores take from animals has remarkable similar attitudes of entitlement encompassing it. Basically, because you want a burger, you're just as bad as the creeper down the street who decided to steal your panties. There's a bit of a jump in logic there. She's talking about mental gymnastics. I think we found the routine that she goes through on a daily basis. We can acclimatize ourselves to repeating some pretty self-serving notions, ones that most people would never accept if even a small detail, such as a female human was substituted, I have to add words because she doesn't know how to fucking write, was substituted for a female cow or dog or chicken. In both rape and our role in oppressing animals, both can be framed as a birthright. And she does these quotes in parentheses, which means it's supposed to be something that you can skip over and continue with the sentence. It won't really matter. She doesn't know how to write. They were born for me to use as I wish, and as what is one's due. I spent money, and this is what is owed me. And also presented in a way that completely belittles the experience of the victim. Come on, don't be so melodramatic. It wasn't that bad. Only a sadistic psychopath would use such terms to justify violating another person. She's not wrong. But we accept those terms without question on a daily basis involving the animals we consume. Underpinning both rape and eating animals, though, is the conceit that because we can do something, this confers the right to do it, no matter who is harmed or killed in the process. Even with her explaining it, there's still this gigantic leap that she's taking that I just can't follow her through. Eating animals and rape. I'm trying to put those lines together in my head, and it just doesn't work. Now, let's talk about these quotes, shall we? They were born for me to use as I wish. Well, unfortunately, if they were born on a farm that was purchased for that specific right, yes, they were born to be used as I wish. Now we go to the next one. I spent money, and this is what is owed to me. Well, this is simple capitalism, and if we know anything about feminists, they're very much socialist. They don't like the capitalist idea. So here we go. If I pay you for a product, and I get it, it's what's owed to me. I purchased it. It's how it works. What I do with what I purchased has no bearing on what you think about it. So if I'm going to buy 300 pounds of soon-to-be hamburger, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because I get to do what I want with that item. She's doing something that's very clever, and what that is she's trying to get it into your head with the previous statement of having a small detail switched from human female to female cow, dog, or chicken. She wants you to equate these items of purchase with a person, and this is perfect example in her next statement. This is something that you would hear if, two drunk college students had sex, and the next morning the guy looks at the girl who's freaking out because, well, she's not on the pill and her crotch looks like Spider-Man attacked it. I mean, she's probably going to be a little worried. And something stupid being said is, come on, don't be so melodramatic, it wasn't that bad. She's right in saying a sadistic psychopath would use such terms in justifying the violation of another person. You don't say that to people. But what bearing does that have on animals? Going through a butcher shop? Maybe visiting the slaughterhouse, is that it? Going in, seeing the cow getting its head cut off? It's not that bad, don't be so melodramatic. You see worse in movies, but she's trying to equate animals that have this happen to them with people. It's kind of disingenuous. She's trying to appeal to that emotion that's inside of you going, oh God, we can't let this happen to another person. Remember, while I'm talking about this, if it ever sounds like she's talking about a human and she's trying to make an example, she's not. She's talking about an animal. So keep that in mind, alright? And here we have another quote to start off another paragraph, because she wants to look smart. Simple. I saw it, I wanted it, so I took it. To my mind, eating animals is a feminist issue, not only because so many of the horrors visited upon animals are so often directly intertwined to our control of their reproductive agency. Third week in a row, something to do that has nothing to do with a woman's reproductive agency, it gets brought up. It's almost like this is a tactic of theirs. For example, the brutal insemination of dairy cows, hens, and other animals. But also because when we adopt this framing of entitlement to another, we reinforce the language and, even more tragically, the mentality of rape. That's right, if you eat at McDonald's, you are not only raping that cashier behind the counter with your money and your want for meat and chicken byproduct, you are raping every single cow, pig, chicken, and other farm animals that they cannot list because they have no idea what they're talking about on the daily just because you're hungry. For shame on you! You are raping these poor, innocent farm animals just because you exist and go to a restaurant. Of all people, shouldn't feminists intuitively grasp this and make an effort to not be complicit in this fatal acquisition of another, justified by many simply because I wanted to and because I can? Isn't this language chillingly rape-like? Don't we learn as young children that this is not acceptable grounds for guiding our choices? Except we're not talking about people, are we? We're talking about inanimate objects. We're not even talking about the pigs, the lambs, the goats, the cows, the hens, the bulls. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about the products that come afterwards. We're talking about the steak. We're talking about the tenderloin, the pork chop. We're talking about the chicken breast. We're talking about bacon. This is what we're talking about. Inanimate objects that don't have the mental capacity to think. And she wants you to take that, look at that piece of bacon sizzling on the grill, and think about the pig that was raped like a woman. She wants you to give that pig agency. Unfortunately, it's not chillingly rape-like language, because we're talking about inanimate object, not people. Now, do we rape the stuffed animal because we see it and want it as children? Or in adulthood, are we raping that car because we see it and we want it and we took it? No, that's actually called theft, not rape. It's two completely different crimes. I understand how theft and rape, in this woman's eyes, could be completely misconstrued, because theft is not a big crime. I mean, she's violently stealing oxygen from the trees around her and she needs to apologize. So apparently this is a thing. She gives a quote, and then a paragraph, and then a quote, and then a paragraph. Unfortunately, what she's doing with these quotes is kind of disingenuous. She's almost poisoning the well. You see, the quote is kind of trying to get you in the mindset of reading the next paragraph. So let's read it here. I wanted it, and that's the only justification I need. To think that way is sociopathic. And sociopaths, believe it or not, are outside the norm. This is not how normal people think. This is why it's kind of poisoning the well. You need to understand that she is coming from an idealistic nature where it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're in the wrong if you eat meat. You're even more in the wrong if you're male. But here, let's get into her little tiny paragraph here. As a young, awakening feminist in college, I was told time and time again that I was naive and silly because of my idealism. No, darling, they weren't calling you naive and silly because you're idealistic. They were trying to warn you that your major in gender studies and your minor in underwater basket weaving is not going to give you a successful career that you're going to be happy with. As a matter of fact, you're probably just going to be stuck doing blogs for the rest of your life. I'm told the same thing today. Shocker, honestly. As someone who is in her 40s, you made it to 40? What are you made out of? Piss and vinegar? You know, I bet your skin is like tanned leather. Almost like the cows that you're trying to protect. Isn't that cultural appropriation? Someone who should have outgrown that first fervent desire to fix the world for the better long ago. I've always wanted to understand why those who are passionate liberationists at heart would participate in the oppression of another, and it doesn't feel particularly naive to be confused by this behavior. It is a disconnect. Why shouldn't this at least be acknowledged? What are we acknowledging? You want to understand why people who are passionate, quote-unquote, liberationists at heart would participate in the oppression of another, because most of those liberationists and passionate people do not consider eating meat the same as rape. You are pushing an idealistic double standard. Because if you eat meat, in this woman's eyes, you're automatically wrong. And if you're a man on top of a meat eater, well, by God, you might as well have horns, a pitchfork, be bright red, and live in the underworld. That's why no one is acknowledging it, sweetheart. There is definitely a disconnect between rape and eating meat. The connection of dots to that go all over the fucking map. There's no straight line. They are mutually exclusive. And we have a real brain burner of a quote here. I want what I want when I want it, and I have the right to it. The amount of stupid in that. No, the fact that she is attributing this to the general populace. And I do mean the general populace, since the majority of people are not vegan and not even vegetarian. She's applying this to everyone. She's making it sound like that we are nothing more than self-righteous, selfish rapists and killers. The self-entitlement on this woman could have its own orbit, to be honest. Maybe you are at a fundraiser for a progressive feminist organization at a beautiful hotel downtown. As a band plays in the background, you might easily see people spread cheese, something that you know is the product of rape, onto crackers. What? Cheese is the product of rape. Alright, you've lost me. The rest of this paragraph is not going to make sense because you've lost me on that. Instead of nursing from their mothers, the calves were taken from them and fed a factory-made formula. This is a formula designed to make the calves reach maximum growth as quickly as possible and to keep them from getting sick as long as possible so that they can be most profitable to those raising them for consumption. Wait. So because the calves are taken from their mother, cheese is rape. Put that on a bumper sticker. Not only are we saying that, but we are saying that taking a calf, which in the wild does not have the best chance of survival, and feeding it, housing it, keeping it warm, taking care of it, making sure it doesn't get sick, and then selling it. You know, it sounds like that calf has a really good life going for it. I mean, it's not like she's gonna bring up veal, right? I mean, young calf, which is generally frowned upon. The male calves will be raised to become veal and cheap meat. Oh, there it is. The females will be born into the same cycle of forced impregnation, birth, and lactation until they are less productive and also killed for cheap meat, just like the mothers they didn't or only briefly suckled. I think someone watched Charlotte's Web a little too much. You can be at this fundraiser while the speaker gives a moving speech about oppression, exploitation, violence, and liberation, and the well-dressed benefactors may be eating cheese and slices of chicken or pig and cow all the while, like you do when you're at a dinner with people speaking. They may applaud this speech and donate more money, because that's what you're there for. This scenario is not all uncommon, and yet, when the rationalizations are removed, it is in opposition to the brave, wild, inclusive, and radically loving spirit of feminism as I can imagine. What? What? No. See, I knew this paragraph was going to be bullshit the moment you started equating spreadable cheese as rape. So you don't like that they're serving non-vegan meals at an organization or a fundraiser at a feminist organization? So what you're saying is, and let me get this correct, the people at this feminist fundraiser are not true feminists, because they are not vegan. This whole blog is filled with nothing but intellectual fallacies. No true feminist would eat meat. This is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of. And then there's this little tiny aside. You, as the vegan in the room, may feel farther and farther estranged from the business as usual feminism. As a result, that's because you are taking your ideology and trying to force it on other people who are in your same ideology. There's a term for this. Most of them don't have it. It's called cognitive dissonance. Jesus Christ, I think if she actually got some, it would make her fucking head explode. If she didn't want to be raped, she wouldn't have worn that skirt. Kind of gave myself chills with that one. You know about these quotes. I'm just going to go into the next paragraph because you'll see what I mean. When I was 20 or so, I was walking home from a party by myself late at night, and a stranger grabbed me. Just like that. He was walking quickly toward me, a big guy, and I was well aware of him. I instinctively moved a bit to the side so he could pass. Behind me, though, he didn't keep walking. Instead, he grabbed me, twisting one arm behind my back as he put his hand over my mouth. Before I had a chance to react, he pushed me against a car. I thrashed against him, grabbing the handle of the car's door with my free hand. I kicked and bit and did whatever my animal nature, in complete adrenaline mode, instructed me to do. He pulled me away from the car and I fell onto the grass. He pinned me down. I thrashed and hit. My hands were free now, but his hands were still over my mouth. 25 or so years later, I can still remember how that felt, the pads of his palm against my teeth, and he reached up under my skirt and pulled my tights down to my knees. This is it, I thought. At that moment, an unseen door shut somewhere. A dog barked, something alarmed him, and he jumped up, running away. For about a block, insensibly, I chased after him, screaming, swearing, throwing my shoes. Nobody came outside. The people on that block probably thought I was just another drunk college student fighting with my boyfriend. The next day, still reeling but uninjured, and damn thankful for it, a friend took me to task for walking home by myself from a party and in a skirt. Other friends comforted me, sat with me as I filed the police report, talked to me late at night whenever I had an anxiety attack. Alright, let's unpack this. She was sexually assaulted. Now, I don't know if this was true or not, so I'm going to take her word for it. She was sexually assaulted. That much is true by her retelling of the tale. She did go to the police. She had her friends to comfort her. Now, this whole paragraph is based off of one person, one friend who took her to task for walking home by herself from a party and in a skirt. So, here's some hard facts, ladies and gentlemen, especially about sexual assault and rape. It's a crime of power, not passion, not lust, not even revenge. It is a crime of power. And whether you want to hear it or not, the easier access you are, the easier it is to become a victim. And this is true for men too. If you are by yourself on a lonely street, if you are unarmed, if you are in flimsy clothing, it has nothing to do if you're hot, it has nothing to do if you're attractive, it has nothing to do if the person knows you. Now, the friend who said you shouldn't have been wearing a skirt, that was a dick thing to say. And anybody else who says that, I agree with them. You know, don't be a dick. It's never what they're wearing. They're not asking for it. It's a crime of opportunity. What I think you're missing is that a friend took you to task for walking home alone late at night from a party. And I know what feminists say, well, women should be able to walk home alone whenever they want. Guys do it all the time. And you know what? Me walking down the street, I'm 6'3". Walking down the street at night, I still look over my shoulder. Now, don't misconstrue my words, people. What happened to this woman is horrible and should never happen to anyone. There are precautions you can take. Men and women walking home in groups, having, I don't know, a firearm on you, some type of weapon, having self-defense classes, or not putting yourself in the situation of staying late at a party and not crashing there. Have a way home. And with Uber and Lyft out there, you have no excuse. So, as far as this paragraph, I feel bad for this woman, I do, but it doesn't have anything to do to prove any point that eating meat equates with what happened to her. So she follows up that impactful paragraph with this quote: "If God didn't want us to eat animals, he wouldn't have made them out of meat." So this is a saying that people use against PETA and people use against vegans. It's ironic, it's supposed to be condescending, it's supposed to be funny for those who eat meat. It has nothing to do with the fact that people who eat meat honestly believe that if she wore that skirt, she must be asking for it. This is disingenuous, just like every other poisoning the well quote she's put in front of every paragraph. Let's just get this over with, shall we? The animals we eat, whose value is only their worth to us, simply had to be born with flesh to be consumed, digested, and forgotten. Yes, and it's been like that for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. This is not something new. If you look into your mouth, you see those sharp, pointy ones at the front, and the thin ones at the very, very front. Those are for biting and tearing flesh. Believe it or not, humans evolved to be able to eat an omnivorous diet. You know, meat and veg. The products are the same. They have no friends or loved ones to comfort them because they are animals. By definition, they don't have friends. Now, I can't say they don't have loved ones because you can look at cats and dogs and penguins and things like that, and you can see that they have a yearning for each other. So I'm not going to say that they don't have loved ones. They have no police reports to file because they're animals. They are blamed with a wink and a nudge for being made out of meat. Maybe, as they reach the end of the line, the hot smell of blood and terror everywhere, screams and bellows surrounding them, they think the same thing to themselves as I did before I was almost raped. This is it. I can tell you that they don't, but you won't believe me. But here's the proof of that. They don't have higher brain functions. They don't have the ability to communicate with us. They don't have the ability to feel these emotions. They don't have the ability to feel complex emotions like terror. Most animals, and I do say most, are based off of the fight or flight response. You are attributing your own emotions and your own feelings of superiority of being a vegan onto the fact that that these animals are being treated poorly. You are not doing anything. You're not doing anything to help your cause. You're making yourself look stupid. Eating animals is not a feminist act. No. Going down on a feminist That's a feminist act. In fact, it is deeply antithetical to the spirit of feminism. How? Explain to me how. You have a very short amount of time that's left in this blog to explain to me that statement. Please do. The beauty of it, though, is that within the promise of feminism, we have our solution. You're not going to explain this, are you? You're just going to drop that and expect everyone to understand, or everyone to just agree with you. Yeah? You definitely are an overzealous, radical, ideological feminist, and a vegan on top of it. We can become the best we can be through the brave and bold practice of radical self-honesty. Self-honesty. My self-honesty is this. I don't eat raw flesh. I cook my meals, and I eat veggies with them, and fruits, and starches. I prepare the meat, whether it's cow, chicken, sheep, pork, fish, turkey, whatever it is. I prepare it with love, and I prepare it with seasoning, and I make it as delicious for the people that I'm cooking for as I possibly can. Because you think you're better than me because you don't eat animals doesn't mean that you have some great self-indulgent realization that the rest of humanity is worse off. Taking what doesn't belong to us is never kind, never progressive, never trailblazing. Veganism is a profoundly feminist act. If I purchased, as a farmer, 300 head of cattle, I'm not taking what doesn't belong to me. I own them, so anything they produce, I own. You have your ideologies mixed up here and you're trying to push something that does not need to be pushed. You're one of those people that came up and started arguing for that article a while ago where it said eating eggs is not a feminist act because we're eating the aborted ovaries of chickens. This type of radical thinking, this type of ridiculous, idealistic, radicalized thought is what is driving people away from you at light speed. If you want to be vegan, fine. You don't need to preach it. You don't need to harp on your friends and family and people around you about how horrible we are for eating meat. We don't bitch and complain about you for eating vegetables, do we? So listen, if you want to be a vegan and you want to be a feminist and you want to combine the two, you're perfectly fine to be able to do something like that. But don't expect this kind of ridiculous thought to do anything but make people laugh at you. And those are my thoughts, folks. I'd love to know yours. Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to keep the fun rolling, you can go ahead and join my Discord. The links are down below. You can also follow me on Twitter, where I will post randomly. And if you'd like to support the channel, which I really hope you do, I have a couple links down below. A brand new merchandise store where you can buy merchandise for Caffeinated and I, help for the guildless. You can also buy a VIP membership to the Army of Snarkness. There's also links to my Patreon, which has brand new reward tiers and some new fun things there as well. You can also donate to me on Streamlabs, or if you want to just do it through PayPal, you can do that as well. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Help for the Guildless. My name, of course, is Antoine, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.